Well, hello there. So in this Ultimate Brain tutorial, we're going to talk about how you can clip highlights from web pages, from Kindle books, from physical books, podcasts, tweets, and get all those different clips and highlights into your Notion workspace and into Ultimate Brain using a tool called Readwise. This is probably the most powerful tool that exists on the internet for collecting highlights and bits and pieces of stuff that you like and come across all across the internet and getting them into one place. That first place being your actual Readwise account, but then the second place being wherever you choose to export it to. And luckily, Readwise actually has a tool for exporting directly into Notion. This is going to be a bit of a longer tutorial. It's going to be a lot more involved than my official Notion web clipper tutorial or the Save to Notion extension tutorial. And the reason for that is that, at least of this recording today, Readwise does not allow us to choose the database to which we export and sync our Readwise highlights. Instead, Readwise actually creates its own database inside of your Notion account, and that is what it syncs with from your actual Readwise account. In fact, Readwise doesn't even use the official Notion API. It uses some sort of magical behind-the-scenes method that we don't know how it works, but it creates this database inside your Notion account, and that is what it uses. But luckily, we can actually add our own properties to this database, and then we can use the power of linked databases to show your highlights inside of Ultimate Brain in areas or resources, in your notes dashboard, and basically any place you want. So this tutorial is going to show you how to start using Readwise, how to actually export your content from Readwise into Notion itself to get this Readwise database, and then we're going to wrap things up by showing you how to start integrating this Readwise database into your copy of Ultimate Brain. It's going to be a bit of a longer one, but for anybody who really wants to use Readwise, this is going to be the sort of ultimate tutorial for it, using it with Ultimate Brain at least. To get started with Readwise, you can go over to readwise.io, and if you are not already a Readwise user, you will now find out that Readwise is a paid tool. I think I'm paying about $8 a month for it. So unlike Notion's official web clipper and the Save to Notion extension, you do have to actually pay to use Readwise and to use it as like a tool to sync all this content to your Notion workspace. If that's cool with you, you can sign up, and then you're going to have this sort of a dashboard. And this essentially collects your highlights from across all kinds of sources of media. So if you have the Readwise extension installed in your Chrome browser, you can do stuff like clipping highlights from web articles to your Readwise account. Let me show you how that works for just a quick example. I'm gonna go over to College Info Geek. Let's just go to this How to Easily Stay Organized and Productive in College article. And if I go ahead and highlight this paragraph here and right click, I can hit Save Highlight to Readwise, which is pretty cool. And then when I go and sync to Readwise later on, I'm gonna see this highlight inside of my web highlights area. So let's see if I go to browse, I go to articles. Once it syncs over, and look, it actually did sync over just now, I'm going to be able to see that highlight directly inside of Readwise. I can also clip Kindle highlights. I can use the official Readwise iOS app. I believe they also have an Android app to literally take pictures of physical books, and then it uses optical character recognition to find the text that you've taken a picture of and sync that to Readwise. There is a podcast player called, I believe it's called Snipped. And that actually has a Readwise extension. So yep, snipped.com. So if you want to clip pieces of podcasts into Readwise, you can do that. There is a way to get tweets into to Readwise. There's just a ton of stuff you can do with this tool. So I kind of am not surprised that it is a paid tool. And then from there, well, actually, let me show you the other import options. You can do Pocket, you can do Instapaper, you can do Air, which is also another podcast app. Command is this great iOS and iPad browser for clipping highlights. Just a whole bunch of sources for getting information and highlights into Readwise. And then from there, what you can actually do is export your highlights to a bunch of different tools. They've got Notion, of course. They've got Evernote, Obsidian, Roam, Remnote, Mailbrew, and then you can do Markdown and CSV export as well. So just a whole lot of flexibility. And for this reason, I kind of view Readwise as like the glue for the personal knowledge management or PKM community who want to get all these different sources of information and their highlights from them into their Notion workspace. One other really cool thing that I want to show you before we get into the actual Notion sync is one specific import option they have that I have connected called Hypothesis. If you go over to Hypothesis, where the IS is the end of the domain, so hypotheses.is, This is an open source platform where you can actually take highlights of web pages and even annotate those highlights with notes, and your highlights are going to stick around on the web page forever, which is really cool. And because this integrates with Readwise, you can actually get those web highlights over to your Notion account. Now you can also just simply make clips with the Readwise extension directly, but this allows you to actually add notes to those highlights. And it is really, really nice in my experience to have these highlights stick around on web pages, even when you've refreshed them or closed the browser and open it up again. Sometimes you want to open up a highlight in your Notion when you're doing some research for, say, a blog post or something like that, or a dissertation if you're in school. You want to be able to open up the article and see the context of that highlight within the entire article, and having it highlighted on the web page persistently is a really, really nice complement to that. So let me show you how that works. I have the Hypothesis extension installed in Chrome, and then over in Readwise, I have connected it to my Readwise account, which means that if I'm on an article, like let's get another one. So if it shows up in Notion, we can tell that we got it from here. Let's just go to this working from a coffee shop article here. If I click this hypothesis icon, I get this nice little sidebar, and I can open this drawer and I can see if I've made any annotations. I can even make notes on the individual page, or I guess the entire page. And if I come and find an area that I want to clip, so let's just say this right here, I'm going to get these two options, annotate or highlight. Now, if I choose highlight, it's going to highlight it and it'll sync it to Readwise, but I can also choose annotate, which will highlight it, but also let me add a note here. So I'm just going to add a note here, and then I'll post to my highlights. And I've got a whole tutorial planned for my main channel on this, so we'll get more into this on that video. But now I'm going to go back to Readwise, and I'm going to hit sync now, just because Readwise does take a little bit of time to automatically sync things. And you will learn this with Notion as well, which is why in my Save to Notion video, I mentioned that one of the highlights of Save to Notion is it instantly syncs to Notion. Readwise does not. But now that I've done this instant import, if I go over to my browse and I go to articles, I should see working from a coffee shop. And I even have my note there. And if I go back to this tab and I refresh it, or I were to open it later, all I need to do is mouse over this little eye icon here, and then my highlight comes right back, which is really, really nice. So that is the sort of import and setup guide for using Readwise. Again, you can use the Readwise app. You can use all kinds of stuff to get all of your information into Readwise. But once you do, you're gonna wanna come over to this connect and sync option right here and go to export highlights, and then you're going to want to configure your Notion integration. So I already have it configured, but I'm going to hit configure once more just to show you exactly how it works. And here you're going to see there are all these options here. So right now I have Ultimate Brain Demo as my selected workspace. Again, I don't get to choose a specific database because it literally just creates a Readwise database in here. And if you haven't done this, it's going to ask you first to integrate with Notion, which is pretty easy. And then these are the options that I like to set. I export automatically. I like to include my highlight locations, which is for Kindle, I believe. Compact layout is nice. And then personally, I'm not a big user of the daily reviews feature, and I want all of my items to be exported, so I leave these two options off. If I hit start export, I should be able to expedite some of those highlights that I've made inside of this tutorial. So I'll go ahead and do that real quick. And it looks like it exported 0 new highlights to 0 new notes. So I think that means the automatic export, if I go to articles here, yes, the automatic export has actually gotten a lot faster than it used to be because I already have this working from the coffee shop article with this highlight and the note that I added, which is really, really cool. So that's how you would integrate Notion with Readwise. And again, it's going to create this private Readwise database, and it's going to have automatic tabs for the different types of media that you might highlight from. So here I've got books, and I've got all kinds of highlights from these books that I've been reading in Kindle. Some of these are also like this one is a physical book, and I use the Readwise app to use that automatic optical character recognition, which is not perfect with thought, but it does work pretty darn well. I have some tweets that I have saved. I've got articles. I think I might even have a podcast highlight or two. I think I used Air for these ones, but I've heard that Snipped is better than Air these days. So if this is where you want to stop, you're going to have this nice little Readwise database, and you can just go over to it and look at your highlights. But If you want to integrate this into another Notion template like Ultimate Brain, then you're going to have to do a little bit of Notion customization and surgery. So that is what we're going to do for the rest of this tutorial. One nice thing to know is that you can actually add new properties to this Readwise database without breaking it. You do not want to change or delete any of the default properties that it comes with. And in fact, I will point your attention to the Readwise Notion FAQ page. So if I just put Readwise Notion into Google, I'm going to get this, how does the Readwise to Notion export integration work? And this official Readwise FAQ or support article is going to show you all of the details behind this integration. But crucially, it does say that we can add new properties to the Readwise table. And that is how we can actually integrate this table into Ultimate Brain. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and add a property, and that property is going to be called area resource. So let's call it area resource. You could just call it resource if you know you're not going to clip directly into areas, but the crucial part is that we need to make sure this is a relation property, and then we need to choose areas resources. And because I'm working on a Playground copy of Ultimate Brain, I'm going to choose UBP, but you will just see UB, and it should be the only option you have, unless you've made a backup of Ultimate Brain. I'm going to create that relation, and now if we go back over to Ultimate Brain itself, and I go to my archive, and I come down and I find my databases at the bottom in the brain, I'm going to go to areas and resources, and I will find that there should be, probably not showing here, but at the bottom here. Yep, I have this related to library property. So this is now my new relation to my Readwise database. So I want to rename this, and I can right now, but you are probably going to see that you can't rename it, and that is because by default, all the databases in Ultimate Brain are locked, like this. So to be able to make this change, you're going to want to navigate to this database. And once again, to review, you can go to the archive, and then at the bottom, you can find all of your databases. And you're going to want to click this locked icon so it is unlocked. From there, I can open any of these pages to access this property. And I'm going to go ahead and change this just to Readwise. Just renaming it so it's a little bit easier to understand. And I might want to also hide it either when empty or always. I want to always have it hidden. And from here, what I can actually do is update my resource template to show any Readwise highlights that match this area or resource. Now, the one sort of downside with this is that you would have to go to your Readwise database and actually categorize these. There's no automated way to do it that I can think of. Again, because this doesn't use the Notion API, it just uses some sort of internal backend magic that we don't know about. But you would actually be able to have these show up inside of your areas or resources if you wanted to. So let's go back to areas and resources. I'm gonna open this little blue arrow, and I'm going to edit my resource template. And inside of this page, I might create another section called Readwise highlights. So I'm just going to click plus right here. Let's do /2 for heading 2. Let's call this Readwise highlights. Maybe I want to give this an emoji. So I'm going to do a pair of glasses. I'm going to do /green background, and then / for my trademark horizontal line right there. From there, we can do /linked database, linked view of a database here. I can search for, I believe it's library. It actually isn't called Readwise, it's called library, but you can see here it's in the Readwise page. So this is what I want. And now I'll be able to see everything from my Readwise database, but I want to filter it. So right now it has category is articles. That's not actually that useful. Let's see here. Yeah, it just brought in a copy of the articles database. So I actually want to change this filter from where category is articles. I'll delete that because I want to see everything. But I do want to make sure that my area resource contains resource template. And I've talked about this in a lot of other tutorials, but if you don't know what this is called a self-referential filter. And what that means is right now, this filter is pointing at a template, specifically the template that we are on right now. And when I actually create a new resource, let's just say I call it productivity, and I generate from this template, this filter will update to now point to productivity. It will not point to the template itself. So these self-updating filters, they're called self-referential filters, and they're very, very useful. I might also, if I want, create some additional filters. So let's just say you did actually want to only show articles in this view. You could add another filter option. So I'm just going to go ahead and also put where category is articles. And if you wanted to have multiple views for different media types, you could do that. So let's just open this as a full page so I can work with it. Why don't I duplicate this one, call it books, and then edit the filter so that only books are showing. And you can do the same thing for tweets, podcasts. You can make as many of these views as you wanted. And from there, I'm going to go back. I'm going to, for aesthetic purposes, hide my database title. And I think I'm good. So now I'll show you another cool little trick. Let's just go to fitness, for example. If I don't have any custom content on this page, like say a call out or something like that, that isn't in the template, then I can actually just delete all of this content and regenerate from the template. So let me show you this. I just want to make sure you don't have any data loss. When I delete all of this content, it's all going to come back except for this call out that I just created, because this is not a row in a linked database that's relying on a filter. It's actual content on this page. So just make sure you don't have any of that actual content if you're going to do this trick. But I can select all this content in here, delete it, and then I can regenerate from my now edited resource template. Note that my callout is gone, but everything else comes back because it's just linked databases that are pulling from filters. And now I've got my Readwise highlights. Of course, nothing has been set to fitness, so why don't I go back over to my Readwise database, and I'm gonna go to the all, and I'm actually going to duplicate this, and I'm gonna call it process. And now I have a view of every highlight, no matter what kind of article or tweet or book it is. I'm gonna change this to be a table. And that way, it's already given it to me. I have area resource right there. And I could, if I wanted to, just go through all of my new highlights and actually clip them into areas or resources. I think I probably have a fitness related clip in here. Let me see. Here we go. Yeah. Why the wellness industry is so utterly broken by CJ Gotcher. So I'm going to go ahead and search for fitness, clip that in there. I know this one is too. And I could just go on down the line and add these to my areas and resources. And now if I go back to my areas and resources and I find that fitness resource, I should see that I've got all of these Readwise highlights sitting here within their correct resource. And you can use this exact same trick to modify the notes dashboard as well. So let's go over to notes, and we've got note inbox, we have favorites, we have areas, resources, recents. If we wanted a Readwise highlights area, we could create that as well. So I might want to create that, let's just say underneath recents. So I'm going to hit plus here next to this list to get myself a new block. Let's do our /2. Let's do our glasses, Readwise highlights. And once again, we're going to do a linked database. We're going to choose that library database that runs the Readwise integration. Now we can create any sort of filters and sorts that we want. So if you're going to use this like an inbox, what you could do is set your filter to where your area resource is empty. And I might also want to set this to be a list or a table view. I'm just going to go ahead and make it a table view for example purposes. And then I might sort by last highlighted. So this gives you a sort of inbox view of all your Readwise highlights. You could go through here and add your areas and resources. So watch, if I add this one to productivity, it's going to disappear. And you could sort of clear your Readwise highlights on a regular basis by having them right here. And these are basically all of the tricks you could use to do any sort of customization you wanted to. You could hook this into projects in the exact same way. You could add your own custom properties like dates. You could go pretty much as far as you want in integrating this directly into Ultimate Brain. The only reason we can't have it automatically come with Ultimate Brain is, once again, Readwise creates this database inside of your Notion workspace. So there's no way to have it like ship with a Notion template that goes into a different Notion workspace. But we can do lots of cool stuff. So I'm going to consider like the majority of this tutorial over. And if you are like really nerdy like me and you want to go extra far, let's do one more interesting little example. If I open this little article right here, I noticed that there is a date property called last highlighted and also last synced. So what if on my notes dashboard, I only want to see things that I have highlighted or synced within the last 24 hours? Well, we can actually utilize a trick that is already being used in the quick capture page to accomplish that. So looking at quick capture, we have a filter that says, and where quick capture is checked. And if we open up, let's just create a task as an example. If we open up this task and we look for that quick capture property, quick capture box, we will see that we're just doing a little if statement where we check if the date between now and this date property is more than 1 day, then we don't check it and we don't show it in the quick capture area. So we can do this exact same thing with our Readwise database. So I'm going to come down to our notes area once more so I can access our Readwise view that we created. We need to add one more additional property to our Readwise table. So let's call this quick capture. Doesn't matter what it's called, but it does matter that it's a formula. And within the formula, we are going to compare our last highlighted date to now. So we're going to do if date between. We're going to go with now, which is just a property that outputs the current date and time, and prop last highlighted. And we're going to go with days. So it outputs days is over 0, or maybe it's highlights within the last week. That seems a little bit more useful, right? So let's just do it. If it's over 7, then we'll say false. Otherwise true. So real simple formula there. If the date between the current date and time and our last highlighted day is more than 7 days, then we won't check this box. Otherwise we will check it. Hit done there. We can see this one has been last highlighted today actually. So it is checked. But if I come down to a really, really old one, like this credit scores article, it should not be checked because our last highlighted date was December 2nd. Note that we do not want to use last synced because everything gets updated when we sync. We want to use last highlighted. And now we can add a simple additional filter to this view, which will be where quick capture box is checked. And in doing that, we only see things we have highlighted in the last week. And last but not least, I'm going to hide this database title for aesthetic reasons, and I'm going to rename this from books to recent highlights. Cool. So now we have a Readwise integration on our notes page, and we also have it integrated in our areas and resources by updating that template. You can do the exact same thing with the area template. There's one little change you would probably want to make with areas. If I go into this music area, you're going to be able to see it in our area notes section. And if I look at the filters here, you're going to see that we are showing any kind of notes where the area or resource is music or where the root area is music. That enables us to show notes that are inside of resources which are contained by music. So here I can see all kinds of web clips related to music production, to singing, and we can see that those are resources of this music area. So if you wanted the same exact setup with Readwise, you would need to add one more property to your Readwise database. So I'm going to go back here and do that. And that's going to be called root area. So if I add a property, call it root area, I want this to be a rollup. And rollups allow us to reach through relation properties to see information on the other side of that resource or the other side of the relation. So if I click here, I can choose my area resource relation. And now this is basically letting me reach into that area's resources database and look at all of its properties. I'm going to choose root area and I'll show original. And now if I add something to a resource that has a root area, I will actually be able to see that root area here. So let's find, I'll just pick a random one. If I add this to a resource that I know has an area, like singing, we should see music come down here in the root area. And then we could go to our areas and resources. We could edit our area template. And again, you're going to want to make sure that this database is unlocked before you try to make this edit. Otherwise, it won't let you do it. And we could add, once again, a Readwise highlights section. So once again, I will make my linked database. And actually, you know what I can do? Instead of recreating this from scratch, I'm going to go back to this database here. I'm going to open up my resource template. And I'm actually just going to copy this. Actually, I think I need to click the block menu and then click away to get the full thing. But if I copy this and I come back with control back bracket to my area template, I should be able to just paste it right here and simply edit my filter so that it's not resource template, but it's area template. Bada boom. Now what I need to do is I need to change this into a group so I can get access to an OR operator right there. And then I can change this to where root area contains area template. I can also get rid of the articles if I want to just show all of my highlights for this area and its child resources. And once again, I can regenerate one of my areas from our new updated template. I don't have any custom content on here, so I'm totally comfortable doing that. Regenerating from the template, everything looks as it did before, with the one exception that now we have Readwise highlights. And we can see that this Readwise highlight is actually part of the singing resource. One thing we may also want to do that I forgot to do when I set this up is add grouping. So I'm going to group by area resource. I'll hide empty groups, and then that will actually allow me to see where this is stored, which is pretty nice. So that, my friends, is a, frankly, more detailed than I was even thinking tutorial on integrating Readwise with Ultimate Brain. Hopefully this has also shown you some advanced new Notion building tricks. So a lot of these techniques can actually be used for lots of other kinds of integrations with your Ultimate Brain, but also with anything in your Notion workspace. So hopefully you found this educational. Hopefully this also helps you to use Readwise and Ultimate Brain in a more synced mesh way. And if you have questions, as always, you can put them in the support community. Thanks as always for watching. I'll have lots of resources in the article surrounding this embedded video, and I will see you in the next tutorial.